How would you describe hope? Is it a feeling? Is it an emotion? I would think that we'd say it's a feeling because, after all, don't we feel or wish things for others? Think about how you use the word hope. Don't we say, well, I hope you have a great day, or I hope you feel better. I hope things are going well. How would you define the word hope? But what if it's a way of thinking also? What if hope could be taught? What impact would that have on you and me, on our communities, on the world, if it's something that could be taught? Are you someone that could use some hope? I know the power of hope in my own life. And a recent book I read, combined with some of the scientific learnings and psychological research that I've done on my own, has my mind just buzzing with paradigm shifts and possibilities. And I thought I'd bring that to you today because it's brought me new hope to my perspective. And I'm wanting to shout it from the rooftops. So today, I want you to know there's hope for everyone. And if life is bleak and tough and confusing, don't despair, because we can learn hope. We're going to share some very powerful things today. Well, hello. You are listening to the No Brainers Empowering Possibilities show. These are dialogues of encouragement with fresh perspective, invitations to ahas, a little bit of science, and a dash of behavioral psychology, some usable, easy skills to try now, and a whole lot of creative fun. So if leveling up is on your radar, my friend, you are at the right show. I am your host, Roseanne Marsh. I'm the author of the teen and parent empowerment curriculum called Level Up, and you are listening to episode number 52, The Science of Hope. What if it can be taught? I sat at the back of a large group of people, and we were there to listen to the report, the service report from some friends and some neighbors who are physicians that had gone on to the country of Cambodia to offer their service. And as they educated our group on the tragic and the appalling history of the Cambodian country, just to hear again the massacre of over 2 million people in the 1970s, there was just like a sting to those stories as the intellectual and the educated and many that were considered a threat were murdered in cold blood to reduce not only the population, but to get the rest of the country to become subservient and more agrarian in nature. The dictatorial regime that wreaked havoc on its citizens and its own infrastructure left people homeless, without their families, in a state of PTSD, such severe trauma. And in 1979, it left no functioning education system and no functioning medical facilities. My heart ached as I heard again about the devastation. And honestly, I couldn't understand the cruelty of a leadership that surmised that this was right or moral or just. And gratefully, the regime was overthrown, as we know, but that country has been under constant stages of repair and regrowth and healing. I can't even imagine. The report from my friends, however, was not one of despair. It was, however, a report of hope. As medical professionals, they had the opportunity to go in there and get collective resources and go with other physicians and establish working and viable medical facilities for the first time in a long time and offer respite to the slums. There was a report and a story of hope. And I sat there with tears in my eyes, but they went from tears of sadness from hearing the tragedy of this country to tears of just gratitude and appreciation for those that were bringing solutions and ideas and learning and education to a country that had been stripped of these privileges. So my heart was bursting with gratitude and, well, hope in humanity, gratitude for these friends and many others who are making a difference all over the world through their kindness to reach out and breathe hope in the places that felt hopeless. Simultaneously to this gathering, I fell into a book called Hope Rising: How the Science of Hope Can Change Your Life. And this is a book that's written by Casey Gwen and Chan Hellman. Casey Gwen, JD, and Chan Hellman, PD. And just serendipity for sure that this book fell into my lap, and it has left a lasting impression on me. And its scientific research and its findings really collaborate with a lot of the learnings in science that I've been learning all over these years that I teach in the Level Up Empowering Possibilities. So I want to share a little bit of the snippets of the gems that and takeaways that I took from this amazing book, and some of the other strategies and some of the other information that really collaborates with the work that they are doing. So what is your definition of hope? If you search it up on the internet, it'll say a feeling of expectation and desire for a certain thing to happen. Doesn't that sound like hope? An expectation and a desire. It's a wish for something to happen, and a hope can be a desire of the heart, right? But when I read the definition in Rising Hope, it resonated with my soul. Listen to their definition. They say, hope is the belief that your future can be brighter and better than your past, and that you actually have a role in making it better. I'm going to read that again. See if that doesn't send chills up your spine. Hope is a belief that your future can be brighter and better than your past, and that you actually have a role in playing in making it better. Doesn't that sound empowering? Hopeful people embrace this truth with all their being. Wishful people also believe their future can be brighter than their past, but they don't have any goals or critical thinking going on. That can make their future better. Hopeful people are willing to work for their better future. Wishful people aren't willing to do the work necessary to have hope and a better future. Agostino Hippo said, hope has two beautiful daughters. Their names are anger and courage. Anger, the way that things are, and the courage to see that they do not remain as they are. Isn't that amazing? In Rising Hope, through over 16 years of research, they were testing children and teens and adults on a hope scale. And Chan Hellman is the chair of the Hope Center of the University of Oklahoma and the director of the Hope Research Center. And they are affiliated with Camp Hope of America and the other affiliated programs. And they have measured, they have tested, and they have taught methodologies that give a power of hope to a population of traumatized and those that have suffered childhood abuse. Now, this is a quote from the foreword. The findings about hope are amazingly consistent from study to study, and they have given us a message to deliver. Hope is just not an idea. Hope is not simply an emotion. It is far more than fleeting. It is not a wish or even an expectation. Hope is about goals, willpower, and pathways. And that's really important, those three: goals, willpower, and pathways. A person with high hopes has goals, the motivation to pursue them, and the determination to overcome obstacles and find pathways to achieve them. So how is it a measurable science? Well, you can give your level of hope. You can measure out your goals, your willpower, and pathways in a life score and measure it against others. Then you can increase your hope score by intentional strategies. If you apply the science of hope in your life, it will change you. If you embrace the language of hope, you will talk different. You will act more intentionally, and you'll live your life with greater purpose than you ever have before. So the components of hope are having goals, having willpower or self-motivation to stick to the goals, and pathways. The pathways are a way to make it happen, or the steps, or a way to achieve the goal. So to have high hope means to have all three components. If we have only two of the components, we can still have hope, but we're going to need to bolster up the third one that we don't have. So let's take a look at some examples. I have a friend of mine who truly desires to be an amazing chef, but she wants to be a chef at a certain restaurant. She's consumed with recipes, the presentation. She has kind of a knack for making tasty meals. And she was what I would say is a decent cook. And she can duplicate meals that she's eaten out. So she has a goal, and her goal is to start out as a sous chef at a particular restaurant. But their requirement is that they have 5 years at other restaurants or graduate from this certain culinary program. Well, she doesn't want to work at any other restaurant other than that one. And the culinary school that they are requiring is nothing that she can afford. So while my friend has a goal, it was a rigid goal. Willpower she has to cook, but her agency isn't dictating where she will cook. And her biggest obstacle was her pathways. She only saw one door that was open to enter. And the required education was one that she couldn't afford for a single mother. She was excited to become a chef, and she had a goal. She had selective willpower and without flexibility to look in other directions. After a couple of months, she had low hope of having her dreams come true, and she started to abandon her goal. So in the story of my friend, it was the inflexibility to look at the pathways in a different direction. Had she been open to problem solving and attacking her dreams from different directions, more options, this could have affected her ability to be able to go forward probably faster in her goals. Another hypothetical example, we may want to be a professional volleyball or basketball player. We could even be dedicated and motivated to work out and practice continually. But unless we have an opportunity to play on teams, unless we have the talent to make the team on a competitive level, we may never be seen. So we can have a goal and even the motivation or the willpower, but without the talent to really achieve it, the pathways don't open up. So let's look at this from another angle. And this is where Rising Hope shines in their efforts. As they administer tests to a hope score, they can identify probably how someone will score based on their life experience. And one of the predictors of low hope is the amount of trauma someone has had in their life. So a person with childhood abuse whose body is in fight and flight because of unresolved trauma. And I want to say that again, because of unresolved trauma, we know that there are methodologies and ways to heal. They'll have a difficulty, but not impossibility to manage all three areas. Why? Because the survival mode of trauma is taking focus from 100% engagement all the time. But the exciting piece is that this can be learned. When these three areas are engaged in, the rising hope is measurable. If the skills that hope teaches can be taught at the young age, there is much intervention in life that can be brought into someone who has experienced trauma. Now, when we say trauma, it could be abuse, it could be abandonment, it could be divorce, job loss, death, tragedy. All of this is a marker on how we respond to life. Interesting to me was the indicators of trauma. Hopefully with the work of those such as Brene Brown and her vulnerability work, and those with tough life experience who are speaking out about their experiences and what they've done to overcome, it's really taking away the stigma that we don't talk about what we've experienced. And my belief is that our experiences shape us for sure, right? No doubt. And within our subconscious, those experiences dictate how we respond to life. It's like this autopilot program that we've written because of how we interpret life. I say how we interpret life because we know that just because we were abused, betrayed, hurt, left out, lost our job, etc., it does not define who we are. It does not define who we are. Influence and affect us, yes, but it is not who we inherently are. We are of value, and our life experiences may contribute to us feeling and believing something other than our truth. This in turn can contribute to our low hope score. There should not be shame in what we've experienced. We could benefit from those that understand our plight and, of course, shared in the appropriate venue. But when we know that there are others and we're not singular or alone in our trials and our struggles, we can find strength in learning from and being the one that reaches behind and assists and teaches hope. But here's the one piece of research that I latched onto. When we look at the behavior of children and teens that are in a situation of low hope, for some reason, their behavior is an indicator of where they're at. Without hope, we see no future. Without hope, we begin to have physical manifestations or symptoms of the trapped emotions and the beliefs. It could be headaches, stomach aches, organ pain, muscle pain, low immune ability. They can take a toll on our body and how it feels. And the behaviors, this is interesting, the behaviors that we may label as a bad kid, a problem child, may just be crying out because of not seeing or feeling hope. Now, I know we know that, but I felt like I needed to reinforce that in my own brain and bring that forward again. When they say in the research with kids and teens and adults that acting out is an indicator, a lot of times it starts out with rage, then it moves into despair, and then it moves to apathy. And when somebody's in apathy, they are hopeless. They don't see a goal. They don't have willpower. And they certainly don't see pathways. Especially these children, those who feel hopeless, they have possibility if they can be taught about hope. And if they're used their agency and are willing, possibilities open up. So how can we nurture hope? Okay, this is my favorite because this is a big part of the curriculum that I teach. Imagination is the instrument of hope. The essence of hope is the ability to understand the way things are right now, and then to imagine the way the future could be, to go from here to here by using the imagination. One of the greatest gifts we could, as parents, we could give our kids is a gift of imagination. Imagining things are different or can be different. Awakening that curiosity and dreaming and imagining with visualization is powerful. Everything created was created metaphysically first, or in the imagination first, before it's brought down to a blueprint of sorts, or before it's acted out. It's up here. Sure, it can start with thoughts, but it can also start with the imagination. So what are some ways that we can teach children? A powerful way is through storytelling. It's a powerful way to awaken imagination. When my kids were little, I would tell them make-believe, fictitious, crazy, off-the-wall stories. Then it moved into I would start the story and then I'd hand it over to them. And then they would tell their part. And then they'd get to a certain part and make the story go a direction. And then someone else would take over the story and spin their part of it. Opening up the door to even the most ridiculous stretches the brain to think beyond its box that it's put itself into. Really, honestly, for problem solving, for all those things, being able to stretch the brain is probably one of the most powerful things that we as adults and children can do. So that imagination opens up the doors and the windows of the box, and it gives permission to be able to play outside that box. So teaching our children the three components of hope, the goals, the willpower, and the pathways. Well, how do we nurture them through goals? Well, to start with goals, I have to say, as a brain nerd, I love learning about how we think, the relationship between the different areas of the brain. And because if we can know how the brain operates, we can literally meet it where it's at and give it the tools it needs. In Level Up, we've developed those tools for the teen brain and where it is developmentally. But I want to throw in here a few learnings and findings that I feel are a great to know and not just a good to know. A goal has to be one that we want or that they want. And it has to tie into their desire. So if we're talking about children, we can't impose our goals on our children without adverse effect. They did testing in the laboratory and they had rats on wheels running. And of course, we know that rats loved to run. And so they put the rats on these running wheels and they would start to run. And those that were excited to run would run and they'd get healthier and they'd get stronger. Well, they tried the test where they put a second wheel with that rat. And when this one would run, this one was imposed upon. It had to run. And when it was forced to run, they realized when they did the markers on that rat that not only was it not getting healthier, it was actually getting sicker. When we look at our own life, how do we react to being forced to certain goals? So goals need to be our own. The goals of our children and others need to be their own. Now, the second area that we're nurturing is pathways. What are the open doors and the steps to achieve the goal? Is there a path that leads to that goal? Another science learning that has been life-changing is that the brain moves faster away from unpleasant things than it moves towards the things that we want. There's a faster reaction from the brain and a natural tendency for it to move away from things it fears or doesn't want than from the goals that we have set. So, but knowing this information, and this is one of the things that we do in Level Up in teaching goal setting. After we put them through some of the goal setting exercises, we take a goal and then we think of all the obstacles and the reasons why it won't work. All those hard things that could come up that our brain would naturally move away from. We come up with what is it and what is the reason why it won't work. Now, this seems counterintuitive to setting a goal, but it does two things. First, it helps them see what the commitment level is going to have. Once they see the work that they're going to have to do and the possibility of some of the obstacles that might be there, are they committed? Do they have the willpower to be able to put in the time and put in the effort? But it does another second and very valuable step, and it helps them problem solve before they step into that goal. If A happens, then B is a possible reaction to it. If C happens, then D is a possible reaction or solution. So they're already proactive with response tactics. They are response able, or they are responsible. It shows them which pathways are open, or if they need to switch pathways, what the possibilities already are. So I love teaching that when we talk about goals and pathways. And of course, that third area in hope is willpower. This is where the imagination is powerful to create those memories or those images in the mind of what it will be like when they achieve their goal, what it will feel like when they no longer have something happen, what will feel like when we no longer have cancer, what we will spend our money on when the washer and dryer has been paid for. The skill of creating hopeful scenarios will do much to help us preserve our willpower. If we could dream it, we can do it. If we can't imagine it, it's hard for anything to come into reality. So trauma is about the loss of imagination. Hopelessness is about the loss of imagination. Trauma can cause damage when someone ends up at the bottom of the hope continuum into the apathy where they have no control over goals or pathways. Trauma is about the loss of imagination. Hopelessness is about the loss of imagination. Imagination gives the ability to imagine a different future situation and create a goal and a pathway to become a reality. This is high hope. When someone is not able to learn anything from a painful, helpless experience, they begin to experience damage from the trauma. You cannot live in the past and the future at the same time. If you get stuck in the pain of the past, your hope will be very low. If there's no ability to imagine alternative futures for yourself or someone you care about, trauma starts to do damage to the mind and to the body. But if you're able to choose life in the future, imagining that different future, You have a pathway to hope. Imagination is crucial for a step towards hope. So who doesn't love Dr. Seuss? And I love this quote when he says, you have brains in your head, you have feet in your shoes, you can steer yourself any direction you choose. You're on your own and you know what you know. And you are the one who'll decide where you go. Oh my gosh, is there not so much truth in that? Two last thoughts. Another way to nurture hope is to consider hope models. Once you have hope, you can give it to others in every social situation. If you need a model, it can even be studying the leaders of the past. What characteristics of a leader do you admire? What can we learn from them? But children need to see models living in high hope. A great way to increase hope is to step into the practice of gratitude. When we can conjure in our heart that thankfulness for things, it changes our vision. And I don't mean it goes from 2020 to something different, but it goes to a wider lens of, oh, I see the abundance of what I do have and what I have around me that I did not see before. We only see what we focus on. So choose wisely where we focus. And lastly, hope is the anchor of the soul. Human beings are designed to hope, to believe that the future can be better than the past and that we have a right to make it so. As a species, we're optimistic and we're goal-oriented until trauma or pain or major life stresses damage our ability to hope. That's when we have to pursue rising hope if we're going to restore our ability to thrive in life. No matter what you face, no matter how big the challenge is, you can know that God or your higher power or the universe is bigger than what you are facing. There is always a plan for you. There's always a plan for us, no matter how big that storm is. So I want to thank Hope Rising for their work and their research and the opportunity to not only listen to and read their book, but to watch some of their findings on video. And as well as I want to thank those who have done research that has exposed me over the years to the amazing things of the brain and the amazing abilities that we have. And when we can give the brain the tools that it needs, it can not only thrive, but it can help us create a future that we can imagine. If you were asked a magic question, if you had a magic wand and can improve anything here in your life, and there's no limitations, no money limitations, whatever it is, what would you change and what would you create? Now, here's my next question. Right where you are today, what are those small, simple steps that you can take towards making that change, making that goal? With your current situation, with your current limitations, what's that pathway? Instead of focusing on what you can't do, let's focus on what we can. Hey, friends, as always, we are creators and we create the life that we are living. We create the life that we want to live. My blessings to all of you, and I hope that you have an amazing week and evaluate what are your goals, what is your willpower, and what are those pathways. Hope Rising. It's there for all of us. Thanks, and we'll see you next week.